Maybe $5,000 over 20 years. I don't really know.
Really?
He has it.
One at a time.
I will put $3,000.
One at a time.
I had to hold it.
Ain't doing nothing.
And I look over my shoulder every day in fear of going to prison.
Beyond the money, this has had to affect, but she's almost been like brainwashed, hypnotized, programmed. Anything that comes out of her mouth is how much money. And this isn't about money. A child has no clue about money, and that's not what you should be concerned with.
First up, we've got Edwin Conway in court because he's got to convince everyone that he's not the father of 20-year-old Trevon Cruz. You see, Edwin's buried under a mountain of back child support debt, a whooping $53,000. He's been in and out of jail so many times, he probably has a favorite cell by now. Edwin's determined to prove he's not the dad, hoping to climb out from under this financial avalanche. On the flip side, Trevon's mom is 100% convinced that Edwin is indeed the father. She thinks the only reason he's denying it is to dodge the child support bill.
So, Ms. Cruz, you say you have zero doubt that Mr. Conway is your child's biological father and claim he's denying your son only to avoid paying the child support debt.
Yes, Your Honor.
According to Edwin, paying child support for a child that isn't his has turned his life upside down, especially since he's shelling out in 2 states. And to make matters worse, hiring an attorney was way too expensive, though. Let's be real, it would have been cheaper than the $53 grand he owes now. Edwin also claims that when Trevon was born, he wasn't even allowed to sign the birth certificate, despite being at the hospital. So by his logic, why should he be paying child support for a kid he couldn't officially acknowledge?
Were you at his birth? Did you sign his birth certificate?
Your Honor, I couldn't sign it. The day I asked her to sign the birth certificate, she told me no. I asked her to sign the birth certificate, she told me I didn't have to sign it.
That's a lie.
Did you say that, Ms.
She told
Cruz?
me not to sign the birth certificate.
came up
You know
and
what?
took
That's
the
why my
joy
name
of
is not on his birth certificate, but on
Jerome,
all the
let me
kids'
see
names.
that evidence, please.
On all the kids,
can't-
my name is on their birth certificate. She told me not to sign the birth certificate.
Meanwhile, Ms. Cruz insists that even though Edwin was present when Trevon was born, he pulled a Houdini and vanished before he could sign the birth certificate, just like he's been Mia all their child's life. But wait, there's more. Edwin's got his own juicy version of events. He claims that back when he and Miss Cruz were doing great, they lost their house. Suddenly, Miss Cruz disappeared faster than free snacks in a break room, only to reappear 9 months later pregnant, and then had the baby 7 months after that. Edwin's timeline doesn't quite add up, and he's convinced there's no way Trevon could be his.
She left town, we was doing all right. We both had a job. We happened to lose our apartment. When we lost our apartment, she hit the corner. She was gone for 9 months. Came back in June. Told me in July she was pregnant. She had the baby in January. That's 7 months.
On the other hand, Miss Cruz says she had a job, so there's no way she was gone for that long. She insists Edwin's memory is fuzzier than a TV with bad reception. Now, with Edwin and Miss Cruz giving wildly conflicting stories, Judge Lauren decides to cut through the drama and hear from the star of the show, Trevon himself. Turns out Trevon has always known Edwin to be his father, but he's also known as a deadbeat dad who never took care of him. Trevon shares that once, his dad even took him to a strip club but left him at the entrance because the bouncer said he was too young to get in.
A couple times he came down to visit me. He tried to call me when he did, but me and him is way different. I remember him taking me into a strip club
while
to
he had a
call
beer.
because he said he wanted to call. He said he wanted
Yes,
to call.
he did.
And see when the
Let the young man testify.
He said he wanted to see when the bus was coming. The dude at the door said, I can't come in because I'm too young. I sat down back by Salvation Army in the Greyhound until he came out. He's inside for like 15 minutes.
But the strip club fiasco is just the tip of the iceberg. Trevon says Edwin has never been there for him. Growing up, he was always angry because his stepdad treated his younger brother better. Although it stung, Trevon understood it was because his stepdad wasn't his real father.
It does hurt me that when I was growing up, I used to look at my stepdad like, I used to see but that's his real kid though, my little brother. I used to wonder, I used to be mad at my mom, I still did, man, why? You left him better than me, and it's not because of that, it's because I've never had you around. Only time you've been around and you've never taught me anything.
After hearing the young man's testimony, Judge Lauren decides that it's time to pull the results.
Mr. Conway, you are his father.
That's what I'm talking about. Get your life together. You ain't had no business question mine.
Yeah, I question it.
Now, this next case is so heart-wrenching that Judge Lauren had to call the plaintiff in for a pep talk, just to make sure she's in the right headspace before the court session begins. You see, Sheila Dennis over here has been searching for the man she believes is her father since she was 12 years old. All this time, she's never seen him, spoken to him, or even heard his voice. And today, for the first time ever, she'll be meeting him in court.
I realize that you've been searching for your father since you were 12 years old.
Yes, ma'am.
The man you believe is your father. But you have never seen him. You have never spoken to him. You have never heard his voice.
Not one time.
And so today will be the very first day you will do that.
The only thing Sheila has of her father are pictures from her mother's wedding. She's been told countless times that she's the spitting image of her grandmother when she was younger. According to Sheila, her dad, Mr. Dennis, abandoned her mom when she was 6 weeks pregnant, and he's never returned. Mr. Dennis, however, tells a different story. He says he's in court to get closure and to give Sheila closure as well. According to him, when he was married to her mother, he worked as a truck driver. One time, while on a job in Florida, he called to check on his wife and kids, only to find out that she was at the lake with her ex-boyfriend in the middle of the night, leaving the kids by the riverbank.
I was a truck driver at the time, and on Memorial Day weekend, I was down in Florida. I called her phone. She is out on the lake in the middle of the night by herself on an antique wooden boat with her ex-boyfriend, while her children are up on the bank.
After he got back, Mr. Dennis was convinced his wife was cheating on him, so they split up. She moved out of the house and relocated to Arkansas while she initiated divorce proceedings. Shortly after, he received a letter notifying him that the proceedings had been canceled because she was pregnant. After Sheila was born, Mr. Dennis made several attempts to see her, but it seemed like his wife had set up a fortress around baby Sheila, complete with a moat filled with alligators. He even begged for a DNA test, ready to embrace fatherhood if the results came back positive. But alas, his wife was as cooperative as a cat at bath time, always turning down his requests faster than you can say paternity test.
I have requested from her mother, and I have proof for DNA test and everything else, that I have been denied by courts from her mother and everybody else.
To get the other side of the story, Judge Lauren decides to give Sheila's mom, Mirau, a ring since she couldn't make it to court. Mirau paints a picture of being good pals with the man in question. She also insists her kids were with her on the boat that night. But hold on to your gavel, because here's where it gets juicy. She swears up and down that she never had any hanky-panky with the guy. However, after a bit,
we dated for a short period of time before I met Steve Dennis. After I met
Now,
Steve
see,
Dennis,
she said she had no
dated.
relationships with him whatsoever. He was just a friend.
I did not have a sexual relationship.
Well,
He
you
was a
did say,
friend.
Miss Muriel, he was just a friend. So the
Yes.
truth is you did used to date him romantically.
as if her denial wasn't juicy enough, Mirau drops another bombshell. She claims she never received Dennis's request for a DNA test. But thankfully, Dennis came to court armed with proof that she got all his requests and turned it down every single time. However, he has been requested for child support and even ended up homeless because of it.
That no one ever asked me for a DNA
You're a
test.
liar. I've
never-
requested from the courts. I've requested for 23 years. I've been fighting this, Teresa.
They never contacted me with any request whatsoever.
You are a liar. I've got the
No,
proof. The
I'm
judge
not.
has the proof where I've requested.
And let me be clear, you have been responsible for child support, Mr. Dennis,
Yes,
all
ma'am.
these years.
I have been homeless because of it.
After hearing all sides of the story, Judge Lauren finally calls for the results.
Sheila Dennis. It has been determined by this court. Mr. Dennis, you are the father.
Next up, we've got Vogel in court, tangled up in another web of child support drama to the tune of $43,000 for a kid he swears isn't his. Plot twist, he's pointing fingers at his own brother as the real dad. Talk about keeping it all in the family. Vogel's got one mission: to clear his name from the paternity mess and wipe that hefty child support debt clean off his record. But Donna Vogel, the child's mother, isn't buying it. She's convinced Vogel's just here to dodge his financial responsibilities, and after 3 decades of uncertainty, she's ready to unleash the truth bomb once and for all.
Ms. Vogel, you say the plaintiff is motivated by money and have always believed he is your son William's father.
Yes,
After
Your Honor.
30 years, you are finally ready to prove the truth today. Is that
Yes, Your
correct?
Honor.
Well, Vogel drops a bombshell, claiming he believes his brother, David, is the real father because Donna got cozy with him in a car. But before Vogel can even finish his sentence, Donna interjects with a correction: it wasn't in a car, but under a bridge. Regardless of the venue, the bottom line remains: Donna fesses up to getting intimate with her husband's brother.
She had sex with my brother in the car, in my car in a parking lot in Janesville, Wisconsin.
Okay, wait a minute. Just take me back.
I'm sorry, Your Honor, but there was no sex in the car. It was under a bridge. My son is a bridge baby.
According to Donna, her relationship with Mr. Vogel was rockier than a roller coaster in an earthquake. So, she sought solace in the arms of his brother because, let's face it, he was good to her. In her own words, he had a silver tongue that could talk her right out from under those bridges. Looks like David wasn't just charming, he was the bridges over troubled waters for Donna's heart. But they didn't just sleep together, they also got married about 3 years later.
After 3 years, we got married.
Oh, so then you married his brother?
Yeah, 3 years after I divorced him.
How do you get to a point where you're going to sleep with your husband's brother?
Well, the bridge thing, he treated me better. He was good to me. And he just was that smooth that he just talked me right out of my britches.
Over the years, the tangled mess of paternity issues has left William in a pretty rough spot, mentally and emotionally. It's like he's been stuck in a whirlwind of uncertainty for so long that he hasn't had a secure thought in years. Poor guy's probably feeling like a lost sock in the dryer of life.
I haven't had a secure thought in years.
When William was growing up, he believed David was his dad. But then, at the ripe old age of 5, his world got flipped upside down when he was told Mr. Vogel was actually his father. Just when he thought he had it all figured out, a few years later, his mom drops the bombshell that David might also be his dad. That's enough to give anyone whiplash from all the back and forth. And to add insult to injury, poor Mr. Vogel has been stuck footing the bill for child support this whole time, all while trying to navigate life with his new wife and kids.
I've been paying in 2 states since 1990. They're taking my federal tax down in Kentucky. The state of Wisconsin's taking my state tax. I have no money. My 3 children, my wife raised with me in the house because I had no money. I couldn't give them Christmas presents. I couldn't give birthday presents. I couldn't do nothing for my own children.
According to Mr. Vogel, the timelines just don't add up. Based on the dates Williams was born, he was away, leaving him scratching his head trying to piece together the puzzle. But the more he tries to make sense of it all, the more confusing it gets. It's like trying to solve a Rubik's Cube blindfolded. As the truth starts to unravel, Donna breaks down in tears, realizing the immense damage her actions have caused.
Got to see, and I often talk about this to young women in this courtroom, when you seek counsel under the covers, when you run and jump into bed with somebody else, people believe the quickest way to get over somebody is...
With that said, Judge Lauren finally calls for the results.
By this court, Mr. Daniel Vogel, you are his father.
Finally back.
Lastly, we've got Miss Jamie Krieger in court, trying to prove that her mother's ex-boyfriend, Mr. Dittmer, is her father. According to her, Mr. Dittmer started denying her because he was furious about paying child support. Now, Jamie and her mother are here to prove paternity once and for all. Mr. Dittmer, however, insists that he only agreed to pay child support by mistake. He's adamant that Jamie isn't his daughter because her mother was a serial cheater throughout their 12-year relationship.
I got duped into paying child support, Your Honor. They sent certified mail to my mother's house and I wasn't there. I was in Colorado. And when the certified mail came, my stepdad signed it. So they held court without me and found me in default because I wasn't there.
Mrs. Lee, on the other hand, insists that Mr. Dittmer is indeed the father. She even pulls out pictures from when her daughter was younger, pointing out the undeniable resemblance. However, she does admit to cheating on him during their relationship but is adamant that it wasn't during the time Jamie was conceived. While telling his side of the story, Mr. Dittmer declares that he never wanted babies in the first place. He claims that Mrs. Lee tricked him into having their first baby by secretly quitting her contraceptive pills. And, much to the courtroom's surprise, she confirms that it's true.
I didn't want the children in the first place. You was the one that wanted marriage and babies.
Yeah, I did.
She stopped taking the pill and got pregnant, Your Honor, and had the first child.
Yes, I did. I sure
She
did.
tricked me again.
I did.
Despite already having 2 older children, Mr. Dittmer insists one of the reasons he doesn't think Jamie is his is because she looks completely different from his other kids. In response, Judge Lauren explains that every child is unique and their different appearances don't necessarily mean Jamie isn't his. Mr. Dittmer, still skeptical, maintains that if he were truly Jamie's father, he wouldn't have been tricked into paying child support.
Is the one that looks different than the older children. The older children have blonde hair, blue eyes. Jamie has dark hair, hazel or brown eyes. The older children are more athletic.
Well, every child is different.
Well, why would she trick me into paying child support like that, Your Honor? I mean, I wasn't even at the hospital when Jamie was born.
To get them off his back, Mr. Dittmer eventually paid off the child support. Despite his doubts about Jamie's paternity, he continued to treat her like his own. He regularly goes to her house to help with yard work and even bought her a car. However, Jamie insists that even though he does these things, he constantly reminds her and her children that he doesn't believe she's his. It's a classic case of mixed signals, generous actions paired with hurtful words.
He's also griped the whole way through. He told my daughter's dad that I wasn't his, and I had to hear about it, which is pretty embarrassing.
No, I never told her.
What happened?
Both parties continue to go back and forth, with accusations and defenses flying like ping pong balls. Judge Lauren, noticing that the dispute seems to revolve around money more than anything else, decides it's time to set the record straight.
I'm trying to get at Ms. Krieger, beyond the money. I mean, this has had to affect you. And I see the tears in your eyes. It's as if she has so much in her heart to say, but she's almost been like brainwashed, hypnotized, programmed. Anything that comes out of her mouth is how much money. And this isn't about money. A child has no clue about money, and they should. That's not what you should be concerned with.
After that, Jamie finally finds the words to express herself. She tearfully explains that what hurts the most is her dad constantly telling people that he isn't her father. Her voice filled with emotion, she lays bare the pain and confusion she's felt for years. Hearing Jamie's heartfelt plea, Judge Lauren decides it's time to call for the DNA test results. With that, the courtroom holds its breath, waiting for the truth to finally be revealed and bring some much-needed clarity to this emotional saga.
Mr. Dittmer, you are her father.
Oh.